Greetings and salutations, Real Estate Undergrounders. It is Ed Matthews with the Real Estate Underground. Thank you so much for listening to us. It's amazing the feedback we get from the folks out there. I'm unbelievably grateful for your comments, your feedback, as well as your questions, and we're happy to answer them as we can. We do read every comment, and one of the things that if you get value from our show that I would very much appreciate is depending on the platform you follow this podcast on, if you could click that subscribe or follow button, it does help us grow. And beyond that, I'm just grateful for you listening. I'm proud to say it's not just my daughters, my wife, and my mom out there listening, which is nice. So with us today is somebody that I have grown to admire over the years. He's very much an unconventional thinker in terms of some of his approaches to the business, and B, some of the asset classes that he invests in, which I'm very, very much looking forward to talking about today, particularly the second one. And Kevin Bupp, welcome to the show. Kevin is the CEO and founder of Sunrise Capital Investors, and I'm very excited to have you on the show. So welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, it's good to see you. So for those folks who haven't discovered you or haven't read your book, The Cash Flow Investor, which I'm actually about halfway through myself right now, I want you to tell everybody who you are and what you do for a living.
Sure. So I'm Kevin Bupp, the CEO of Sunrise Capital Investors. We're a boutique equity firm that focuses on, as you mentioned, two select asset classes, mobile home parks being one, and parking facilities. So, think parking lots, parking garages. That is the second. That's all we do day in and day out. We've been buying mobile home parks now for about 14 years and parking for about 5. And so, but those are the only areas we spend our time, energy, and focus on. Outside of that, Ed, I've been a full-time investor my entire adult life. I bought my first property when I was 20 years old. It was a single-family home. Kind of started there, built up a portfolio of single-family properties that morphed into some multifamily properties that morphed into different types of commercial real estate, a little bit of everything. Office back in the day when it was sexy and still an attractive asset class, some retail, some industrial. Again, just trying to figure out the better way to kind of skin the cat. And shortly after that period, 08 happened, lost everything. Rebuilt it again, but rebuilt it with mobile home parks. I mean, that's really, there's about a 3-year lull from 08 to 2011 where all I managed was damage control of my existing portfolio, trying to, just get myself from that grave. And so the second phase of my journey was to rebuild. And I luckily stumbled across mobile home parks because it was an asset class I had never considered. And I just happened to meet a fella that owned a few mobile home parks, talked to me about all the major benefits, and intrigued me enough to where I left that lunch meeting and went and bought one. And here we are now, again, 13, 14 years later. And we've now owned parks in 18 different states. We've got about 3,500 lots in our current portfolio and having a lot of fun doing it. So it's been a great asset class, a great ride, and look forward to the next 20, 30, 40 years of it.
Yeah. So I have a very close friend of mine who's just kind of graduated from Class C value added multifamily, and he has been buying up mobile home parks as fast as he can find them over the last 2-3 years. So I'm curious, his name's Oz Pariser, by the way. I'm curious about your viewpoint on that class. We're going to get to parking lots in a bit, but
sure.
What drew you to mobile home parks as opposed to like multifamily, for instance?
Yeah. So, well, I will say that the rebuild plan starting in 2011, kind of like what does version 2 look like for me? And how do I rebuild back? Pretty much, I lost everything. I lost my primary, lost all my investment, had my bank accounts garnished. So I was kind of starting from zero with bad credit. And so I had a good bit of time to reflect back on what worked and what didn't work. And, just how could I do things better the second time around? And what I identified, a lot of my single family properties were spread out amongst 5 different counties. This is back before technology really played a major role in sales and leasing. There weren't digital showings and digital lock boxes and all that kind of stuff. And what a headache it was. I had 122 single family properties, and what a headache it was to manage the leasing, the sales, the maintenance, and all that stuff. It wasn't me, but I had a team, and it was just so inefficient. And I also looked at the apartment complexes that we own, a couple smaller ones. We had like 12 units, 36 units. The biggest one was 72 units. So all kind of like smaller, medium sized. And a lot of those headaches didn't really exist. A couple of larger ones, we had like part-time sales and leasing agents on staff. We had a maintenance guy that would oversee about 130 of those multifamily units that were all within a 5-mile radius of one another. It just seemed to be the better way to rebuild. And so going into this rebuild stage, 2011, I was dead set on multifamily. And so I went on this exploratory mission. The world had changed in 2011 than what it would look like in 2007. Financing was so different. real estate was still in major distress all across the country. There was lots of excess housing still that was still working its way, being absorbed. It was a very different world and landscape. And when I say that those 3 years were just damage control for me from '08 to '11, I really didn't pay any attention outside of my own little sphere, because everyone I knew in real estate also was losing everything. And so I kind of stuck to kind of manage my chaos and didn't really pay attention to what else was going on in the world around me. And so 2011 was kind of like, I'm just getting started in this thing again, right? New world. What do I know? What don't I know? And I was introduced by a mutual friend to a gentleman by the name of Randy. Again, I was kind of trying to expand my network, talk to everyone. And Randy had been a commercial banker for 30 years. That's why a close friend of mine introduced me to Randy. He said, hey, Randy was a commercial banker for 30 years. He just retired, but the guy knows everybody in Tampa Bay. Like he's well connected. I would probably go have a conversation with him. I met Randy for lunch, had a 2-hour lunch, and found out that Randy had retired from banking. The last 10 years of his commercial banking career, he was doing a lot of loans here in Florida for clients that had mobile home and RV parks. And after a couple of years of doing those loans, he realized that he was on the wrong side of that P&L and basically committed to buying a couple mobile home parks for his retirement, which he did. When I met him, he had 3 mobile home parks. And so he went on to just speak of all the benefits and why mobile home parks were so much better than multifamily. Some of the really big ones that stuck out to me, one of the biggest ones was the tenant base, the resident base. They own their own home and they're very sticky. Very akin to that of living in a subdivision. Like, to them, it is a subdivision. It's their home. It's their neighborhood. And so he's like, I've got tenants that have lived in my communities for 20, 30 years. And he's like, here's the thing is when the homes go up for sale, they continue paying me the lot rent because we own the lots. They own the home. They continue paying the lot rent. Homes for sale. People are viewing it. They find a buyer. Buyer gets qualified. Buyer moves in. New buyer takes over the responsibility of the lot rent. So there's never a down period like you have with a multifamily, like a traditional rental, right? Like there's not a period where you don't have income coming in. You don't have necessarily a make ready cost that you would with a normal rental unit. So that was like the big one. I was like, that sounds amazing, right? And then add the element of just being a sticky resident base. Like you don't have a lot of turnover. These folks live there for a very long time. A lot of them. So today we actually have a number of communities where we've got folks that have lived there 50 plus years. And then they've also got family members that live in the neighborhood, right? Like they've got sons and daughters and granddaughters that live in the neighborhood. So that was a big one for me. Another really big one that stuck out was truly the management intensity of it. And I'm speaking more to not having to own the actual units. So when there's an HVAC issue, there's a roofing issue, a plumbing issue, our manager's not getting called about that. We don't have to have full staff maintenance crew to go manage all these various elements. The homeowner does. That's their response. Just like we own our own home. If our plumbing breaks, I call a plumber. And so it seemed to be a new world. Those are the two things that really just piqued my interest enough. There's many others, but those are the two big ones. I said, man, there's something with this because I'm burnt out from what I was doing. And don't get me wrong. When I first started building my original portfolio of single families, I literally managed it myself up until I was spread so thin, like 40 units. I mean, I was like running around like a chicken with its head cut off. I had like a part-time assistant and I had a maintenance guy that I kind of relied upon to do a lot of things. But outside of that, the normal sales, leasing, answering calls, doing showings, I was doing most of that, and it was crazy. It was hectic. And even once we actually started outsourcing management once we continued to grow, even then, just the inefficiencies that were associated, as I'd mentioned, just the sales and leasing and the maintenance of all these properties spread out, it was a lot. And there wasn't, I did the basic math. I can make the same amount, if not more, with this mobile home park type structure and have way less management intensity and responsibility associated with it. And so it was a no-brainer to me. And for that reason, I was very excited because I knew what the other side looked like. I knew that the grass actually really wasn't green on the other side and that this could be a special place. So, I mean, that was it. I left that lunch meeting. I was like, I'm going to go try to buy a park. There wasn't much information out there. It wasn't a well-known asset class like it is today. Randy was the only guy I knew that owned the park at that point. I'd never met anyone else. There was no books really out there on the topic. There wasn't much. And so I just started calling brokers that had listings and started looking at properties, started trying to understand the dynamics of the asset, and got cold feet a bunch of times, had a couple deals under contract, got cold feet, later regretting that. I know who bought a number of those properties and I know how well they did. But anyway, I finally did buy one. It took me about a year. I bought that first property and that was it, man. That kicked it all off. That was in 2012. And turned that one around, bought the next one, bought the next one, bought the next one. So now we've owned more than 50 communities. We've gone full cycle on, I believe it's 17 or 18 of them at present time. And we've owned in 18 states. I think at present we're in 14 or 15 different states. And so it's been a fun ride, great learning experience. The asset class today is much more well-known than what it was back then. Back then, a lot of people owned them, but banks didn't understand that there wasn't a lot of lending opportunities in the space. It was really difficult to get financing, which there's pros and cons to that. But in any event, it's a very different world today. Everyone knows about mobile home parks. People like me out there speaking about it, which again, pros and cons of that. Now more competition, but also if we do exit properties, we tend to get a higher premium on the sale than what we might have gotten, maybe 10, 12 years ago. So in any event, I'll stop there.
Between you and your two podcasts and Brandon Turner, and there's a handful of other, very well-known folks out there that are talking about mobile homes. And, what's happening in mobile home parks is very similar to what I've seen happening in the self-storage space, for instance,
That's right?
Where people have discovered, actually, fewer moving parts, and, you can affect the positive, the NOI positively, just doing a handful of very specific things, in terms of growing the business and, making the business more efficient.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so using that as a comparison, that's actually, it's a great comparison. The consolidation of self-storage started happening probably about 10 years prior to that of mobile home parks. But with that being said, and I actually own self-storage and I have owned it years past. If you compare the two, and they're both great asset classes, but one of the other key things that Randy kind of pointed out, and he wasn't comparing it to self-storage, he was really comparing it to multifamily, but the barrier to entry of new development, he's like, they're not building them anymore. Like they're not. So if you find a great asset in a great market, you don't necessarily have to worry about competition opening up right down the road. And there's a litany of reasons for that. But any other asset class, you pretty much have to worry about competition. Self-storage is a big one. If you're in a major market with all the big boys, guess what? It's a risk. It's a significant risk, right? They're going to keep building. They've got more dollars and cents to put towards advertising. They can do, maybe more creative or aggressive pricing structures that might price you out of the market. We don't have to necessarily worry about that in the mobile home park space. So it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. So you mentioned going full cycle. So it sounds like this is, very similar to a syndication in the multifamily world. So talk to me about your capital stack and your acquisition strategies.
Yeah. When I mean going full cycle, that means that we bought something, we've, maximized the value and we've exited out of it, whether it was, whether we had limited, LP capital, in a formal syndication, or prior to that. I mean, back when I started buying parks, I bought them with either my own capital or like more of a private debt structure than an actual formal equity syndication. I didn't know what syndication was until like 2013. I wasn't familiar with the structure. Prior to that, my days were really finding private lenders that were high net worth individuals, but that would write a independent, mortgage note tied to one property. Like that was it. Like that was the complexity of my structure. That worked really well. I bought a lot of deals doing that. I loved it. I wish we could do the deals we're doing today in getting private debt and not necessarily have to bring equity into the equation. But in any event, going full cycle just means that we bought, fixed up, and then sold and ultimately did really well with the different parks that we've had. But our capital stack today, I mean, we launched our very first fund back in 2014. We're now on our fourth fund with which we launched this one back in, I think, October of last year. The current fund that we're in it's $100 million fund. We're just about, we'll max it out probably by end of Q1 next year, and then we'll open up the fifth fund. And so the capital stack is, it's pretty straightforward. We keep it, I like to, keep it really simple. We don't add a lot of different classes in there. We basically have an 8, 9, or 10 pref based on the capital contribution of the investor. It's only accredited investors. That's Reg D 506C. And that's a 70-30 split after investors get all their original capital back and after we make up any accrued pref that's remaining. And so, but our plan, I'd say that our plan has evolved quite a bit over the past probably really 5 years, where one of the biggest regrets I have, a number of those properties that we sold, there was definitely 6 or 7 I regret selling. I mean, they're phenomenal markets and I know they're not making them anymore. And don't get me wrong, we did incredibly well. I mean, just knocked it out of the park, grand slam. But it continually gets harder and harder in an asset class like this where they're not making more. Every time we sell something, we got to go find something else to buy. And you're selling something that you know more than anyone else. You've got all the skeletons worked out. You got all the kinks worked out of it, right? You could simply just continually do a cash out refinance to tap into the equity there. But ultimately, we chose to sell a number of properties. And we've since morphed the structure into a more of a long-term hold. Because again, I know that they're not making more of these. And every time I find one in a great location, it's going to be even more difficult to ever replace that going down the road, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road. As this space gets continually consolidated, what I think is hard today is going to be even harder 5 years from now. And so now we've really morphed our structure into a long-term a long-term hold. And so most of our investors that are with us, we've really kind of honed in on who we a good fit for. We're not a good fit for the guy that really wants it. He needs the velocity of capital. He's looking to do 2 to 3 year turnarounds, all IRR driven. That's not for us. We're not a good fit for you. You're not a good fit for us. For us, we're the guy. We want the investors that have already made a good amount of money. They want wealth preservation. Not saying that they don't want to grow their capital, but they don't need to hit massive double-digit returns. They don't need to take high risk. They just want consistent cash flow on a quarterly basis, and they want it in good asset classes. And they also don't want a tax burden every 3, 4, 5 years when we sell something. Mobile home parks probably have the best depreciation of any asset class. And while that's great on the front end, every time we sell something, not only is there a recapture, but now we've also got the capital gains on top of that. And so like you create our investors, like they're traveling the world doing their thing. The last thing that they want to get money, they want to return, they like profits, but now you just created a big tax burden for them that they got to figure out and they got to sort out. So we have found that we get more negative feedback when we had sold properties than positive feedback. So surely you can't make everybody happy, but we definitely got more negative feedback of like, hey guys, I appreciate what you do. I appreciate that thing was a slam dunk, but damn, you got something else I could put this money into? Because I got this massive tax burden. Like you sold me on the depreciation 3 years ago, but now I got a major consequence on my hands. So what are you going to do?
Hey,
the solution is let's hold this stuff forever. Let's just do continual cash out refinance. It's 1031s if we do sell something, and just keep kicking it down the road.
Yeah, and that's the key, right? One of the things you had mentioned there is a lot of asset classes have that challenge, right? Is that if I go sell this asset, what am I going to do with it, right? Because multifamily in my world, you can go buy something, but you're going to have to overpay for it. Why would you do that? Again, you already know this asset. You've already uncovered all of the curveballs, and you've resolved most, if not all of them. And it's a cash flowing property. So if it is, then why mess with happy? Right.
Yeah. And I get in the beginning. So like we gotta look at it from a different couple points of context. If you're just getting started and you're liminal capital and you need those big hits, right? Like you need to be able to take those big hits and then parlay that into something else, right? So it all comes at different stages. We're at a point now where like we've done really well earlier on, and and truly have the ability, even the sustainability from like a GP perspective. Like we're comfortable, Brian and my partner Brian and myself, like we're comfortable in like the true delayed gratification of these deals and don't have to sell them. And so our investors are happy because we can give them consistent returns on a regular basis. Brian and I are happy because we can wait 5, 6, 7 years until we're in the promote. Like we don't need it today. We don't need to sell in 3 years in order to get that big chunky profit split on the back end. So we can, I'm willing to look at it as more of an annuity. It's an annuity today for our investors. They're getting access to that money right away. And then again, our icing is on the cake at the end, or towards the end of the rainbow, as we get them paid back and get them caught up. So, but again, you can't do that in the beginning. That's very difficult to do in the beginning. You can only live so long off a fee, right? Off an acquisition fee or an asset management fee really isn't really much more than just to keep the lights on, right? And so just we're at a different stage of our business than what it might have looked like even 5, 6, 7 years ago. So while I regret selling some of that stuff, some of it was critical in order for us to get where we're at today. So
yeah, it gives you that flexibility in the longer view that I think probably most of your investors really appreciate. It sounds like they do. So I'm gonna switch gears on you. So 10, 15, maybe 20 years ago, I used to work in corporate America, flying all over the world slinging software, and I happened to be, for whatever reason, I don't remember why, I certainly didn't pay for it, first class. And I sit down next to this gentleman and we strike up a conversation. His name's Alan Lazowski. And I come to realize that I'm sitting next to the CEO of Last Parking, right? And so now I'm fascinated. I'm a real estate guy. Back then I was small multifamily and flipping houses. And I, started interrogating the poor man on, what he found so attractive about parking. And, one of the things that he had said to me was, very low maintenance in terms of managing the asset, right? He said, there are no plumbers, there are no handymen. You have to call at 2:00 in the morning to go fix a toilet. Well, occasionally maybe, but very rarely. And, the fact is that it's an operating business that you can, grow very easily with some tried and true management techniques.
Yeah.
So
that's right.
I've been fascinated for years. I have yet to act. And then I came across you and thought, oh, okay, I'm going to pick this man's brain because this is something. So why parking for you?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
A motivated seller just filled out your web form. If you call back within 5 minutes, you're nearly 4 times more likely to get that seller appointment. But delay your follow-up by even just 10 minutes? Forget it. You're toast. Ella Vista Connect calls that lead back in 60 seconds, qualifies them, and schedules your meeting. Find out how much slow follow-up is costing you. Free calculator at ellavista.com/underground.
Yeah. So for the reasons that Alan had mentioned, they ring absolutely true. A couple other reasons, for us, we all know the adage of location. You can't change a market, right? You can buy a great looking asset, but if it's in a crappy market or in the wrong side of town or not in the good school district or not in the path of progress, right? There's only so much you can do. Like you can't pull too many levers, right? Like you can only pull the levers inside the community, but if you can't attract the right people there, then what's the difference? It doesn't matter, right? So parking, we kind of look at it in the same vein. Like for us, it's first and foremost, it's location. So we look at it today as it's got to be the parking element of it. It truly, in our eyes, has to be the lowest use that it will ever see. Meaning that inevitably, at some point in time, the lot that it sits on is so desirable that whether it's 5, 10, 15, 20 years, it will have a much higher and better use as something else, as a redevelopment play. We're not developers. We don't put any value on that. We don't underwrite that future value. It's got to make sense today as a standalone parking asset with parking revenue. We got to make the economics work and the business model work from there. But again, knowing that like the footprint that it sits on is invaluable and it's irreplaceable and it's in the best part of town. So like for us, that's huge. And then lastly, if you have that location, if you've got that phenomenal location, which it's hard to find. We literally have only bought like one a year. We just closed on one last week and we've been buying like one parking asset a year. We want to buy more, but it's really hard for it to check all of our boxes because ultimately, if you've got that phenomenal location, what we have found is that parking has an inelastic demand, meaning that if you've got the prime location, no matter if I'll use an example. We've got a parking garage down here on the beach where I'm at, down in Clearwater Beach. There's a moratorium on new parking. You can't build it. Can't build standalone parking. They've removed all the parking minimum requirements from new development. So any new hotels going up, new condominiums, the developer's only building as much parking as they need, no more, no less. Where historically, zoning requirements used to require a certain formula, like one parking space or 1.5 parking spaces per every 1,000 square feet. And what happened is in a lot of cities across the country, we had this excess of parking. Well, that's gone away. Pretty much every major city across the country has eliminated these parking requirements. So no new parking is really being built. In fact, it's only going away because a lot of these surface lots are being built into other things. And so using the example of Clearwater Beach, we've got half the folks that use a parking garage are in from out of town. Like they've traveled there, they're parking their car for a long period of time, but the other half are literally transient. They're people that live all in and around the Tampa Bay area. They come for the day with their kids. They got their rafts in the car. They got their coolers. They drive. It already takes them an hour to get down there. The traffic's horrific down in Clearwater Beach. I try to steer clear of it. I literally go by boat or I don't go at all because like getting down there via car is a nightmare. It's good though for us with parking. And so there's only so much parking and kids are crying in the car. The son's, I got to pee, Dad, I got to pee. Dad's been driving around trying to find parking. It's $20 here. It's $20 there. Those are full. So he can't even park there. Ours is $25. Is he going to continue driving around the block 3, 4, 5, 6 different times to try to find something that's a 20 that's actually got a spot available, or is he going to pay the $25, right? So like in our location literally is 1 block from the beach. It's got a direct path to the sand and it's covered, right? The car stays in the shade. So it's got this, it's not really a pricing driven metric if you got it in the right location. If you are the most, efficient to whatever you're in close proximity to, again, for us is the beach and that one asset. The garage we was closed on in downtown Charlotte. It is the closest parking garage to the Spectrum Center where the NBA Hornets play and where they do, massive shows. Justin Timberlake was there the other week, right? We are the closest parking garage to that. It's literally a stone's throw. And so we can very easily charge $3 more, $4 more for the same parking spot than what the neighboring, parking lots could potentially charge. And no one's going to blink an eye. No one's going to drive up and to drive back out when they realize that it's $3 more and goes find a parking spot somewhere else. So it's got this inelastic demand that is just phenomenal. Again, but it's all built around that prime location. It's got to be the best location in the entire marketplace. So a litany of other reasons why we love it, but like those are the big ones. It's been a phenomenal asset class. But again, for us, there's a lot of boxes that we have to get checked in order for it to fit our buy box. And we probably look at 100 deals to find one that even remotely gets us excited. And even then, I'd say it's probably more than that. It's probably more than that. So we bought one a year now. We've been on a track, one a year for the last 5 years. And so hopefully we can keep that up. And that's good for us. If that's all it's going to be, that's fine. And if they're the best location in that respective marketplace, I'm good with that, right? It's a slow and steady wins that race, and we'll just keep buying the ones that are the prime locations in great cities. So anyway, I'll stop, and I know you got some additional questions.
I know it's akin to the Ray Kroc play in McDonald's, right?
It's a real estate play. Yep.
We own the corner lot in Main Street, USA, everywhere, right? And
yep.
As long as you understand that is, it's a convenience play, right? A family of 4 with a toddler in the back who really needs to find a restroom isn't going to quibble over $3, $4, $5. And especially if, you're providing them with the shortest walk to whatever venue they're going to, the beach.
Yep.
I remember being in Boston when we were living up there. There was this old gas station a block away from Fenway Park, and we would always try to get in there. And it was, back when I was younger, it was $30, $40. Now it's probably $80. Mm-hmm. And I'll gladly pay it if I only have to walk, a block to the stadium. It's fine. Right.
Yeah.
Property. The guy should be ashamed of himself, but he also goes back. I would pretty sure he goes back to a much nicer home than the one I was living in back then. It's off to him. So so it's fascinating, and the other thing that's interesting that you said that I had, because I don't follow the asset class, although I should, you're evaluating 100 deals to find one, buying one a year. So, that tells me that there are many hundreds of parking lot deals that are occurring in this country on an annualized basis, because you're not the only one out there. And it's fascinating because it wouldn't even occur to me that parking lots change hands.
Yeah. Well, there's a nuance to that. And it's one of the reasons that only probably 1 out of 100 really check the box for us. And, if everyone's parked in a parking garage in a downtown location, pick the city across the country, a lot of parking lots that were built are in areas where there's high rises, there's large office towers, and a lot of parking that was built was predominantly built to support not just, it surely could support like transient traffic and people that are going to eat and things like that. But a lot of it back when it was purposely built was built to support a lot of the office workers that were going into these high rises. And so a lot of the parking that we look at, either it's associated with an office or a few offices, or even if it's a standalone and it's not attached to an office, a lot of it's, a lot of the demand driver, the majority of it was office. And I don't know how to fix that problem. I can't fix the market that something's in. I can't fix all the other outside dynamics of a market, right? I can't fix whether or not people actually go back to the workplace and offices fill back up to pre-pandemic levels. And so a lot of what we look at, it's got, maybe 70% of the original demand was office. And while there still might be an office component there, that occupancy is down significantly. And while the other portion's stable, like the transient, and if there's government or whatever else that other parking was being used for, that's stable. I don't know I can't grow that because there's only so many people that are coming there, right? I can't make more people come to the area, and I don't know how to fix getting people back into the office workplace. And so for that reason, if it's got a disproportionate amount of the either current demand or historic demand that came from office, then we just move on, because I don't know how to solve that riddle. So for that reason, there's not a lot that really fit our buy box that have a minimal amount of demand from office, and the remainder amount diversified amongst government, entertainment venues. It can have some office, but it's got to also be a 24/7 city. It's got to be like where they have daytime activities and also nighttime and over the weekends. So it starts eliminating a lot of the potential prospects. So the last deal we bought last year, it's a perfect example because there's a lot of other parking assets in that market. It's in downtown Phoenix. There's a lot of other parking garages. There's a lot of parking garages in Phoenix. Phoenix is huge, but I'd say probably 80% of them, the parkers that are parking there, a lot of it's derived from office. And while that office market in Phoenix isn't nearly as bad as maybe what it is in San Francisco or New York or what have you, Chicago, I still don't know how to fix it. I can't tell you what the crystal ball looks like and what level is it going to come back to? If you ask me, I would say that how we see it today is about as good as it's going to get, right? Like as far as like occupancy, you might see some little tick ups here and there in different markets, but I think the companies that have said they put their foot down, you get back in the office, you go find another job. I feel like that's been said. It's kind of played itself out. And I think where we're at is where we're going to end up. And so I can't fix that. And so the parking garage that we acquired, it's number one, it's a stone's throw. It's the closest garage to the Maricopa County Courthouse, which is the second largest courthouse in the country. It's right in the heart of downtown. It's actually called Center City Garage. So that entire downtown was built around this garage. It's 24/7 seat. There's a whole entertainment venue across the street with like, Splitsville bowling, a whole bunch of bars, restaurants, and entertainment. And then right down the way is the Phoenix Sun Stadium. 2 blocks away is the Phoenix Sun Stadium. And then the Diamondback Stadium is right next to that one. So we got all these, literally it's got the stacked up demand. The courthouse kills it. But then the weekends, we just went through our financials yesterday, and Usher came and had a back-to-back show. And we we literally exceeded by like 15% our prepaid parking revenue for the month because of the Usher show. I mean, it's coming from all different directions. And it's really hard to find that. It's hard to find the diversity there. And if you know what, the office piece of it, there's about 20% or about 15% of the demand in that garage that derives from office in the area. Like we just took on Rocket Mortgage is based in downtown Phoenix, and they don't have the parking in the office building that they're in. And so we just did a deal with them where they're taking 150 spaces on a monthly basis. But if that goes, it's great. That's a little kicker. It's awesome. But if it goes away, not the end of the world, right? It's not going to completely crush that garage. Whereas most other garages, if the office demand goes away, what already did. And that's why those garages are, they're being sold for pennies on a dollar. But what do you do with it? What do you do with it?
So a lot of those, I'm just curious, in terms of those parking lots that don't pencil because of the office problem, right? I mean, I live in Connecticut. There are empty office buildings everywhere around here.
Yeah.
Now, and I think the back to work movement, as you were saying, has played out. You either work for that type of company or you don't anymore. And, a lot of companies here in the Northeast have embraced remote work for a lot of reasons. Mm-hmm. A lot of them because the worker said, no, I'm not coming back. And so, I'm curious what is happening to those parking assets. Are they being, bulldozed and other asset classes being built on those lots or?
Yeah. I mean, in cities, in Chicago, probably not. Chicago's got some other issues they've got to work through, right? I think there's going to be a lot of cities that just have vacant buildings where someone very creative is going to have to maybe not just even redevelop that existing footprint, but probably maybe a whole couple city blocks, right? And like turn it into something completely different than what it is at present time. But I can partially answer that. So this last deal that we just did, we get paid as real estate professionals by solving complex problems. This garage we bought in downtown Charlotte, it came to me because the garage is not in distress. The CMBS loan that's in place is in special servicing, but it's because the garage takes up about a third of a city block, but the other 2/3 of that city block, and literally not adjoining, but basically touching walls to the garage, is a large office building. Wake Forest University occupied like 85% of it. They moved out like 70% of their lease in the past couple of years. So that's sandwiched in the middle. And then at the end is a DoubleTree Hotel. So 3 properties, all one parcel ID underneath one loan. The garage has always done great, but the office is sucking wind and basically threw that loan into distress. And in order to get this deal done, we had to basically submit a revised plat while we were in contract, get approval from the special servicing company. But then once that happened, try to find buyers, try to line people up that can actually take the stuff we didn't want. I didn't want the office. I didn't want to deal with the risk of it. And I didn't want the hotel because I'm not in the hotel business. Hotel was good, but it's not my business and had no interest. So we found best in class guys. They're already doing a project in Charlotte. They came in and bought the office from us basically at zero cost. I mean, their basis is practically zero in it, and they're converting it. They're doing a conversion project right now. They're converting it into 280 market rate apartment units. And then we found the hotel buyer to come in, and it was actually a ground lease in the hotel. We sold the ground lease to the owner of the hotel at a very fair price. And we got what we wanted out of it, and we got it at a significant discount. But it was a complex, convoluted, challenging deal. But it was in distress. To your point, it was in distress because of the office component. What has just happened at Charlotte's actually a thriving downtown market, and there's still a shortage of actual housing in the downtown area, and there's a demand for that product. That wouldn't work a lot of places. That conversion wouldn't work in a lot of places. So I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I think that it's going to take probably a lot of folks way smarter than you and I to figure out that that's a massive mountain of a problem of office buildings that are going to be left vacant. And the thing is that the majority of them actually don't have the floor plate designed to where they would be conducive for a conversion. That's the thing that no one's really talking about. I think I've heard it here and there, but like it's a small percentage. I mean, it's less than 10% of office buildings in the country that would actually make for a viable conversion to multifamily project. And so what do you do with the other 90% that are empty? They like to put multifamily there. Yeah. So they got to be knocked down, but they got to be bought. So like it basically has to get to where the basis is so low, whoever the buyer that's coming into it, whoever the bank that's on the deal, they got to be willing to basically give it away for practically nothing, to where literally whoever's coming into it, their basis better be practically zero, with the exception of whatever's going to cost to actually take that building down, to where they can be left with this, just a footprint and enough opportunity and room for them to build something new. So I don't know if we're there yet. I don't know if it's got that bad, but I think it's going to get that bad. I think that we're, at least that asset class, I think it's heading the wrong direction. It has been for a while, and it's just a matter of time, and a lot of banks and lenders have been kicking the can, trying to do workouts, loan modifications, trying to just, fake it till they make it. But I just don't, I think that one's going to come to roost in the next couple of years.
At some point in the next 5 to maybe 10 years.
Has to.
Yeah, there's just not enough. There's no demand for office space these days.
But if it's a prime location and someone can get a blank slate, there's an opportunity there, right? I mean, if it's, again, but location, if it's not in a great location, then again, different challenge. But if it's in most stuff in downtown areas is a phenomenal location, right? And so it's just who can buy it at a low enough basis and basically wipe the slate clean and do something else.
Yeah, you need to find an owner with a balance sheet problem, right?
Yep, exactly.
They're out there. Good luck. All right, so let's move on. Man, I could talk about this. In fact, you and I are gonna keep in touch after this is done. Because
absolutely,
I should ask you about this. I actually may be one of your future investors. You never know. All right, so let's move on to lightning round, the final 5. So I'm always interested in leaders and folks like yourself who are, what gets you out of bed on Monday morning, right? Because it's not money at this point. It's, you've done well. The mortgage is paid off. The kids' college education is taken care of. Your retirement's taken care of. And yet you still go to work. So what is your purpose?
It's a great question. I mean, I truly enjoy what I do. I love in our business. I'm very much involved in the acquisition side. I've always been a deal guy my entire life. I mean, whether it's cars, boats, real estate, I enjoy the art of the deal. I enjoy negotiations. As I told you, I was late to this call because I had a deal. I thought I was listening for 10 minutes as he told me, he was trying to wiggle his way out, as I thought, out of the deal, and had to bring it back, alive again. And so I don't necessarily enjoy the feeling going into that, but I enjoy the outcome when it's a win-win for all parties. So I just enjoy the art of the deal. And so waking up on Monday morning and knowing that I get to go do that, and not only than that, that's just me, but I think the team that supports us now, we've got an incredible team. We've done a really good job of really cultivating just internal culture. Everyone's really rowing in the right direction, doing it for the same reasons. Everyone's having fun doing it, and it's exciting knowing that I've got that team support behind us, and we're all doing it for the same cause. Like, we're all having fun doing what we're doing. If you're not, it's not like literally we'll support you, we'll help you move on to wherever it might be, but like ultimately, just it's a fun environment. Even when times are challenging, it's been a fun environment. So that's really what keeps me going. I mean, really, as far as like going to work every day, like that's what it is.
And it can be that simple, right? It's like I think we were talking about earlier. Don't mess with happy.
That's right. No.
Right.
And it buys time as well, right? I mean, speaking to like how that's impacts me and my wife and my kids and our family, it's buying time back, right? Like having the right team in place and putting the infrastructure that's taken so many years to build has allowed me to buy my time back and buy flexibility in my schedule and buy the opportunity to spend as many waking moments as I can with them, or as we'd like to, and go create memories and experiences together. And just that by far, like that is the end result. Like that's what gets fleshed out for me personally as a result of what we do in the business day to day. And again, I enjoy both sides of it, but I really enjoy the time that it buys me.
I left corporate America in end of 2017 into early 18. And my kids were 9 and 5, I think, when they were, when I did that. And it was the best decision I ever made, because I got to, I was missing so much good stuff prior to that, traveling all over the country. And, it was just, slinging software and services. But
yeah,
it's, having that time freedom to, for instance, today, right? It's in 2 hours. I've got to jump and go coach my daughter's softball, winter league.
Love it.
And there's nobody to ask. I just go, and it's wonderful. So
You can never buy that time back either.
all right. So I'm always curious about mentorship and the folks that have helped you along the way. So I'm curious, what's the best advice you've ever gotten, and who gave it to you?
Yeah, that is a great question. I've had a lot of mentors in my life, but there was two pivotal ones. The first one is the guy that got me, his name's David, got me into real estate, kind of just literally showed me the basic ropes, showed me his business model. I replicated it and just took it to a larger scale, at least what I thought was a larger scale. But the second mentor I had, still a good friend to this day, Rod Cleve. I met him when I moved to Florida about 20 years ago, and he had a much bigger scale than I had ever envisioned anyone could have as far as like single family homes. And he helped me better understand, like, not scale for the sake of scale, not scale for just the sake of money, but scale for the ability to build the team underneath it, to support the team underneath it. That again will help. Again, if your end goal is to, again, buy time, buy flexibility with your schedule, and actually just kind of live it on your own terms, like, you need a team in order to help you do that, right? And like, you need a certain scale in order to get there. So while bigger's not always better, it's better to the extent of you hit a certain pivotal point in time to where you can hire folks in the organization that are way smarter than you, right? That can put those hats on, that can do the job better than you could ever do it, and create yourself a sustainable business. So like, that was probably the best piece of advice I ever received, and really pointed me in a different direction of just thinking of employees and staff as like an asset. I mean, like they're an absolute asset, not a liability. A lot of people are like, I don't want employees, I don't want team members, this, that, and the other. He completely flipped that switch 180 degrees on me. So big moment for me.
I don't know, a former boss and mentor, Rob Bernstein, said something similar. He said, look, every person we hire is an investment, right? And they've got to be able to do the job as well or better, preferably better than the person that they're
absolutely.
And that's how you scale a business. And it was like light. So yeah, interesting and great advice. So what is, I think you touched on it earlier in terms of selling some of these assets, but what is the decision you'd like to have back? What was a mistake, and how did you recover from it?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, and I don't know if it was a mistake more than anything else, but there was a period, I lost everything in 2008, and then really spent 3 years just not head in the sand, but just focusing on the challenge that I had, which was important. I had to do that. But I shut myself off completely to any opportunities in real estate. And I knew going into that, everyone knows the old adage of, you want to buy when there's blood in the streets. Buy low, sell high, right? I mean, buy when there's distress. And it was very difficult to understand that when it's your own blood in the street and when it's your own distress. And so if there was one thing I could look back on and change, I would have pulled my boots back up faster, and I would have started taking advantage of some of the opportunities that were in the marketplace. And I started buying when there still were opportunities, but I think I could have had a year or two jump, and like, that was the best buying time that some of us will probably ever see. I mean, as far as like the sheer amount of discounts that existed in the marketplace. And we've done well. We bought a lot, but there was a good 2 critical years that we missed where we could just scoop things up for literally pennies on the dollar. So that'd be the one I'd share.
Okay, that's fair. So I'm always curious about, leaders who almost universally tend to be readers, right? And so how do you take in information, and what authors or creators or whatever are you paying attention to these days?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I like both physical and audiobooks. I typically, when I buy a book, I buy both. I buy the physical and the audio version. I find myself much easier getting distracted with the audio version, and so I have to reflect back on the physical, and the physical allows me to take notes. I'm an old school guy. I literally have a highlighter, and I have a physical paper or a physical book. I never really got into Kindle. I tried. I bought one. Didn't really like it all that much, and so that's how I learn. Literally, I do a little bit of both. I go back and forth, and I typically use books as more reference manuals than I do read it from cover to cover. However, I will say that one of the things I've started doing, I don't have a commute. We're all virtual now. We used to have offices for many years, and so I would have a commute in the morning, and that would give me an opportunity to listen to podcasts or just listen to audiobooks more. And I don't do that. We haven't done that for years. And I don't necessarily enjoy listening to audiobooks while I work out. It doesn't do it for me. I need music. I've tried. It just doesn't get me jacked up. And my comprehension is not as good when I'm like out of breath, right? And so Blinkist, there's a number of other apps like it out there where it's like kind of call it the Cliff Notes version of a book. And so I'll go through and knock out one of those every day and literally go through and kind of pick out what the next 30 days looks like. That's been really good for me. It's not great. It's not the same as reading the entirety of a book, because it's their cliff notes from their perspective of what they thought were the key highlights of it. But it's a good in between for me. So as far as a book that I'm reading right now at the present time, and I read it a couple times a year, but more importantly over the holidays, and I give it out to a lot of staff members. I give it out to a lot of friends. It's probably the book I've gifted the most is The Go-Giver. And I don't have a copy on my desk, and I always forget the author's name, but it's a short book. It's a sweet book, and it's got a lot of impact and a lot of meaning to it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's interesting you say that. So I'm a huge Blinkist fan myself, and don't through the cliff notes. There are people out there like myself that they literally got them through high school and probably college.
Yeah. That's true. I didn't even think of that. I actually referenced cliff notes. A lot of people might not know what that is.
But I'm an alumni of a university probably because of cliff notes. So all right. Yeah, that's amazing. So the last one is success. Finish the sentence for me. Success means, what does it mean to you?
Freedom and flexibility to do whatever I choose to do.
Love that.
I think.
Yeah, there's said for time freedom, for sure. Living on your own terms purposefully is a good thing. All right, so Kevin, when you're not talking about real estate or you're not buying up mobile home parks and parking lots, what do you like to do for fun?
Yeah, I'm a boating guy. I mean, our whole family revolves around the water. We've got, we spend a lot of time in the ocean. We've got a lake property. I grew up wakeboarding and doing all that fun stuff on lakes. So we do a lot of that as kids. We go out fishing on the ocean, we ski, we snowboard. So lots of outdoor activities and sports, and just more importantly, I've got an 8 and 11-year-old boy. And I found it to be very fun to live vicariously through them, kind of rekindle the things I enjoyed as a kid and watch them get enjoyment out of it. And also me be a kid at the same time. So I truly enjoy that.
And the other thing you'll value as they get a little bit older is a tired teenager is a very well-behaved teenager.
That's funny. It's funny you say that. My wife my wife's a big runner, and every once in a while she'll literally put them both in a treadmill. I'm like, you run 2 miles. You run. I mean, literally force them to literally, if you guys are being literally, you're getting on my nerves, get in there and go run a couple miles on the treadmill. So it's pretty funny.
It's off the YMCA and we go play basketball for 6 hours and come home. And yeah, my brother and I were far better behaved when we were exhausted. So
yeah, funny.
Yeah. So if you want to learn more about you or Sunrise Capital Investors or anything else, what's the best way to get in touch?
Yeah, investwithsunrise.com is the website that will get you to our company page. We've got a current offering that's open there. You can learn about that. You can learn about past deals that we've done. We've got a lot of information, a lot of resources on that site. My last name's fairly unique, Bupp. And so if you just go to LinkedIn, I'm pretty active there. Pretty active on Instagram as well as Facebook, and just type in my name and you should be able to track me down. I think I am the only Kevin that's actually in the real estate world. Maybe there's another one, but you should be able to find me.
Fine when I went to do the research for this.
Yeah.
So Kevin Bupp, thank you so much for your time. It's a pleasure to meet you, and I wish you continued good success.
Thank you, Ed. Appreciate it.
This has been the Real Estate Underground. Don't forget to subscribe. It helps us grow. Until next time, Undergrounders, remember your real estate journey begins with a simple step forward. Now get to it. Bye for now.